Most righteous choices require the greatest of sacrifices. This is the motto James Ironwood lived by. In Volume 3, Crow and Osmond shared their opinion regarding Ironwood. Osmond says,
His heart is in the right place. He's just misguided.
Sometimes I'm not even sure he has a heart.
Who's more right, Osmond or Crow? In some ways, maybe both were right. Ironwood has many good qualities. He is honest about his opinions, and his straightforwardness is refreshing compared to Osmond's manipulative and tricky nature. Osmond prefers to do things in the dark, trusting few people and not sharing everything he knows, even to those few people. Compared to that, Ironwood wants everyone on equal grounds regarding the truth. He wants to tell the existence of Salem to everyone and started the Amity Project, the plan later adopted and executed by Team RWBY and Co. He also goes far as to sacrifice his arm to take down Watts. Unlike most politicians, he isn't afraid to be hurt. But all that good tried needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Howsoever you may appear good on the outside, the inside is of utmost importance. And inside, Ironwood was filled with ego and fear. His ego is different from the likes of Adam. While Adam clearly wanted himself to be gaudy, superior than the others, and was overshadowed with the resentment for humanity, Ironwood did not contain such resentment. He's rather humble and formal in the way he acts compared to Adam. But just like anyone, he has his ego.
But ask yourself this. Do you honestly believe your children can win a war?
Showcasing the power of the Atlas army as soon as he got the chance, trying to lift up Atlas to the sky at the first sight of trouble. Atlas, Atlas, Atlas. Ironwood is obsessed with that flying hunk of junk. It doesn't even fly because of its own powers. It is powered by the relic of creation. If you use the relic for anything else, the tower crumbles down faster than the economy of 2008. But despite that, Ironwood loves Atlas. In his theme song Hero, Ironwood sings about how he will die and sacrifice himself for someone without regrets. And that someone most definitely is Atlas. He will do anything, even take his own life, if it means Atlas is safe. Atlas is his ego. It is strange to think that your real self is something that is detached from your mortal flesh. But that's just how a lot of martyrs think. Their sense of self is attached to a foreign object. Therefore they are able to so easily kill their body, their mortal flesh, at a heartbeat. This is not the same thing as love, not the same thing as compassion, self-realization, or enlightenment. Ironwood didn't lose his shit during Volume 3 as much as he did during Volume 8. He fended off Grimms and fought against his own robot soldiers. While he was undoubtedly less experienced than his Volume 7 counterpart, therefore allowed Watts to hack his robots, the things he did in Volume 3 were hardly vile. All were understandable and heroic actions, and he did not force the kids to battle. He told them his opinions, allowing them the freedom to leave. Quite wise. But the attack on Beacon and Atlas should not be compared, as the attack on Beacon was far smaller in scale compared to the attack on Atlas. And have you noticed? The fall of Beacon had nothing to do with Ironwood's precious little Atlas. Atlas was not the bargaining chip, hence he operated without fear and worry. But in Volume 7 and 8, the enemy was directly under Atlas's nose, and this time it wasn't just Salem's goons, it was Salem herself, piloting a giant freaking whale. Ironwood did not take the fall of Beacon very well. Instead of trying to look deeply into the reason he lost with clarity, his mind started to become clouded with fear, a morbid idolization of Salem formed within him. It is important to not underestimate an opponent, a mistake Volume 3 Ironwood made, but idolizing the enemy, fearing them is just as bad of a mistake, and unfortunately Ironwood was too unaware, too prideful, too egotistical to notice his own idolization.
Sometimes I worry that's her greatest advantage. Without humanity, does she still feel fear? Does she ever hesitate? When Salem hit Beacon, even with all my ships, all of my soldiers, I was no match for her. I've never felt so helpless. The way she told me she was there.
Truly, people underestimate the power of fear. Ironwood was scared when he saw the glass queen on his desk. He started rambling and shaking. Old memories of the fall of Beacon came back up. And even before that, Ironwood learned that Salem was immortal. He knows there was no winning this war. Instead of trying to look within himself and face his fear, Ironwood blamed Team RWBY for all of his problems. Them telling Robin about the Amity Tower has nothing to do with the situation at hand. He is scared, therefore he wants to have control over everything as much as possible so that he can assure the safety of Atlas at all costs. That's the thing about Ironwood. He always wanted control over everything. Even back in Volume 2, he wanted to push Osmond off his seat because Osmond wasn't operating in the way he would have liked to. Ironwood is egotistical. He doesn't accept others for who they are. He wants everyone to be self-serving to him, just like his little robots. That's why the Aesops are the way they are, confused and conflicted on their emotions regarding their teammates and their jobs. He didn't help Aesops sort their emotional problems. How could he, when he suffered exactly the same problem as they did? In fact, he chose the Aesops because they were subservient to him. He even repressed his own emotions, trying to show no sign of a human weakness. That's the great lesson he learned in Volume 3. He reasoned that the reason Salem won was because she had no doubt, no compassion, no emotions, no humanity. And he thought if he copied Salem, he would reach greater powers. But this only made it hard for his fellow men to relate to him. Howsoever he tried to be calm and cold, he could never let go of his fears. He wants control because he is afraid of what will happen if Team RWBY goes on their own and does whatever they want it to do. Fear wants to control everything. It's taken a hold of Ironwood, and through Ironwood, it wanted to imprison Team RWBY. Had he not been such a control freak, had he attempted to reconcile the situation, Team RWBY would be the last people to hit his hand away. It was Ironwood's hands that was always cold and tight. Just from the actions that Robin took, it was clear that Robin had a good heart, wanted to help the people of Metal, and didn't hold a grudge against Atlas. But Ironwood didn't trust her. He trusted RWBY to an extent, but only because he thought they would follow all his orders, because they were little kids in his eyes. But people like Team RWBY, people like Robin, are always labeled as criminals, just because she disobeyed the law. Law and order that is held in place by metal men clouded by fear, greedy politicians, and an election system that is so easily rigged. Even the so-called voters are completely in the dark, driven by their hungry stomachs rather than their conscious will. There is no relying on other people, no relying on law, order, and religion. You gotta do what felt right to you, carefully making sure that you're not being controlled by your fear, your greed, your spite, your ego. I know Robin has her own problems, but in such a dire circumstance of Metal being squeezed by the embargo and the grim attack increasing, she probably felt that she was pressured on time. She had no way to know that what Ironwood was doing in the middle of the tundra was any good. The only reason she is treated as a criminal was because she was weak. She didn't hold any legal authoritarian powers. Therefore, if she did anything to oppose the authority, she'll be a criminal. This is a problem that is plaguing the world. Instead of looking at the context of people's actions, the heart within their beings, we evaluate good and bad based on hypocritical rules. And the so-called rules are worthless when a dictatorial general takes control by killing everyone in the council, plus becoming the only council member, therefore the only person giving out commands. One thing is to be made clear. As cruel and paranoid as Ironwood's actions are, they made logical sense. He wanted to eliminate every council member because there may be followers who may be swayed by their presence, as they held legal rights to oppose Ironwood. He let Watts survive because he knew too much. He was a useful asset in terms of technology and hackings are concerned. Not to mention he worked under Salem, therefore holding possible vital information. He shut down the SDC ships which were there to evacuate Mantle citizens because he needed as many people as possible inside Mantle for his threat to work. And he wanted to bomb Mantle because in his eyes, Mantle was doomed anyways. If he didn't do anything, RWBY and Co would run around and kill too much time. He wouldn't be able to lift Atlas up in the sky before Salem revived. But if you threaten to blow up Mantle, Team RWBY would have to bring Penny, as all of this is happening because RWBY wanted to save Mantle. In his paranoid state, Ironwood understood Team RWBY, his opposition. It was always about saving Mantle. So if you simply blow up Mantle, RWBY and Co will grieve, but eventually they'll have no choice but to help Ironwood fly up Atlas because Atlassians will be the only people left for RWBY to save. It is such a logically sound plan. The only reason it sounds ridiculous to critics is that the critics are just a bunch of sheeps. They are foolish. They hate RWBY not because they have a deep reason to, but simply because the person next to them is hating it. Even those who think they are doing it out of their own free will are doing it because they were indoctrinated, brainwashed, programmed to believe in ridiculous writing rules and dogmas. Programmed to think that whenever something complex and confusing happens, they could always blame the inadequacy of the writers and not their own lack of comprehension. It's much more ego-fulfilling that way. And those who scream at Ironwood for becoming evil are only screaming that because they have been programmed to think that all instances of bombing and genocide are bad. Bombing and genocide equals bad. Genocide equals evil cartoon villains. Critics try hard to be smart, yet their thinking remains as robotic as ever. To Ironwood, it was a choice between saving Atlas and saving nobody, and he was sure Salem would completely annihilate everyone if he waited for too long. He didn't want to blow up Mantle. He doesn't hate Mantle. In fact, a certain part of him probably still cared for Mantle, but in his eyes, it was a necessary sacrifice. Sacrifice is such a cold word. People seem to have completely missed the malice behind the word sacrifice. Somehow, people are okay with Ironwood leaving Mantle to die, but not okay with Ironwood blowing up Mantle himself. This is the truth behind the word sacrifice. It's dehumanizing, degrading. When Ironwood decided to leave Mantle, he saw Mantle as nothing more than a sacrifice. And once you see certain people as sacrifices, it's so easy to just use these people's lives as bargaining chip to further his goals. RWBY and Co never saw anyone as sacrifices. They wouldn't leave anyone behind. They wouldn't discriminate them based on their race or nation. And they weren't controlled by fear. Ironwood gave up as soon as he heard about Salem approaching. When he saw Salem appear, he was completely engulfed in fear, whereas RWBY and Co did what they wanted to do because it was their soul guiding them. It doesn't matter how much the odds were against them, because you never know until you try. They tried to help everyone because they recognized everyone's humanity and wanted to protect it. It is unfortunate that they couldn't save everyone, But it wasn't for the lack of trying that these people died. Penny, Ironwood, Aesop's weren't sacrifices in their eyes. They were still people they cared about. But some of them, such as Ironwood, were really stubborn. Yeah, they could have told Ironwood about the plan and how they were going to use the Staff of Creation to create portals. But Ironwood himself made that exchange impossible by threatening to blow up Metal. If you tell him the plan, and Ironwood goes, "Nah, my flying fortress is precious. I don't care if this plan saves all the people. Bye-bye, Metal," then everything will be lost. Ironwood being blindsided was the criteria for this plan to work. Ironwood can only help others at a time of peace. As soon as things went south, fear overtook him, and he would rather absolutely make sure Atlas was safe no matter the consequences, and run away. And in a typical slave-like fashion, there are people who want to enslave themselves in their trust in Ironwood, believing his claims that Atlas was the greatest military in the world, and the only thing stopping Salem from world domination. Hence they blamed Team RWBY for saving everyone. They valued the flying fortress over the people's lives because that's what Ironwood did. The damn fortress wasn't even flying on its own. The Staff of Creation was holding it in the air. It's the staff that has immense power, not the fortress. Had RWBY and Co. not lost the staff, they would easily made another flying fortress. It's darn shame because they did lose it, but it's not like they wanted to lose it. Chances are, if Ironwood didn't pull his fancy stunt and actually helped them, the staff wouldn't be lost. Sure, Ironwood's plan threatened the safety of the staff less. Doesn't mean it was airtight. Flying up to the sky doesn't do anything. You can't go anywhere near space because dust loses its strength outer space. If you simply destroy one of the roots of the pole that is creating the defense mechanism, the barrier that is defending Atlas will be easily lost. And there are creatures like the Nevermore that can fly. Not to mention Salem and Center can also fly. Even disregarding that, you'll eventually run out of food, heat, dust, and resources, forcing you to go down into Salem's hands. All that paranoia and fear clouded Ironwood from seeing the big picture. People have completely overvalued the little things Ironwood did, giving Yang a new arm, giving them hunter's licenses, and helped them train. And this is such a small gift. It's a small gift because Ironwood is the most authoritative figure in Atlas. With a snap of his fingers, he was able to do all these small tasks. People only focus on the external largeness of the gift, and not the quality of the gift itself. It is easy for such an influential person to do all these actions. It doesn't cost them anything, but going against the authoritarian figure, knowing that this might cost them their life, and trying to save everyone against a force like Salem, is a gift not many can give. And certainly Ironwood could not gift others something meaningful during distressing times. A bong was the only gift he prepared when the things he cared about were in danger. This has been such a big talking point. Why did Ironwood decide to bomb Metal after Salem's will was blown up? Well, he knew Salem was immortal, that she would come back. Ironwood, unlike Osmond, didn't know how long the blast would contain Salem. And most of all, he was paranoid. Yeah, fear, paranoia, always attempting to guard himself before the enemy even raised their arm. This is the disease of fear. Declaring an embargo, cutting off Metal and Atlas from the rest of the world before any trouble came up. Cause of fear. Attempting to escape with Atlas as soon as Salem showed her face. Cause of fear. Trying to blow up Metal and fly away as soon as he has a chance to formulate a plan. Cause of fear. Yes, Salem being destroyed by Osmond's magic gave everyone plenty of time to think, but Ironwood's thought process was consumed by worry and fear. Just like he always jumps the gun before any sign of trouble, he tried to take advantage of the situation and threaten Team RWBY with the bomb. That's the power of fear. In his final moments, Ironwood attempted to shoot Cinder, but just like how he always feared Salem, how he thought it was useless to fight, in his final moments, he still gave up. He had already given up when he tried to escape with Atlas. He had already given up when he tried to blow up Mantle, and now with no allies at his side, barely conscious against an enormous foe, he thought he had no chance of victory, therefore he had no use in trying. He is buried under the wave of the fortress that he had been obsessing over all his life, unable to face his own fears and feelings of apathy.